when they first built the shed on the block, they were pretty tight for money. They really did build this business on the smell of an oily rag and a whole lot of hard work. So I remember Scott talking about his concept that he was going to build this shed, but that he'd be able to add components on to build the brewery over time, which is essentially what's happened. The original shed is still there. I think it's part of the kitchen now. And they had to do everything. So there was no table service inside because you couldn't fit a table inside. There was about 10 tables and chairs outside, and it didn't matter whether it was raining, hailing or shining. You had to sit there to drink your beer because that was the only option. They made do, they used to serve these pizzas that they cooked on a conveyor belt because that was the only room they had. They didn't even have a sink in there, I don't think. Start off, it was really tough, and they worked very, very hard. And I know that it was a hard way to make money at the start.
I remember we used to come up here and we were amazed that people would be prepared to sit outside holding their beer because it was freezing cold, because there was no room inside. I think they had a bar that if there were 6 people at the bar, there was no more room for anybody else inside, so it was everybody else outside. And Scott would have to each morning get the pallet jack to move tables outside so people could sit at them. So it was fairly basic to start with. And luckily, things could only improve from there.
One of my fondest memories, because there was no sort of roof, we were playing there one Sunday afternoon, and it started to really rain. And Scott had actually put up a sail, this sort of sail. The problem was the sail got incredibly full of water, and then all of a sudden all the water just kind of tipped all over us, and that was a bit of a novel moment.
Well, the grand opening was a grand affair, and it was great fun. We were honoured to have the Federal Minister for Tourism there, and he was remarkably relaxed and enjoying himself.
And from my point of view, the occasion was great because Fiona just shone. She was in her element. She had a wonderful time and seemed so full of life and so full of vitality. Yet it wasn't many months later that she was given her terminal diagnosis.
So one time there was a problem with parking, and there was parking, the cars for people who wanted to go to the brewery were going in the wrong spot. So I can remember Fee coming over and borrowing the post bonger again, because what do you do when you need to put in a star picket? You get a post bonger. And the next thing I know, I'm probably going to the brewery to park my car somewhere, and there's Fee putting in a fence to make sure that the cars were parking on their property and in the right place, because there'd been some complaints.
It was such a dog-friendly place. So sometimes we'd be playing, we'd have dogs singing along with us, and I think that's really great too, that it was sort of a place where you could bring your dog and kind of, come along with the family and just kind of a really relaxed time.
Well, we could see that they were going to be very busy, the way things were going, and they had these 3 gorgeous little girls who we thought, my goodness, life's going to be pretty hectic for them. So we thought we might be able to help in some way, and we said to Scott and Fiona one day, how about if we come up and help in the brewery? We can wash dishes, we can make coffee or serve wine. Happy to do anything to help. And there was this awkward silence as they looked at each other. And then Fiona said, well, thank you for the offer, but you're really not quite the right demographics.
So the brewery was doing really well. Sunday afternoons at Gavin Street were the place to be. There'd be someone like Nikki Bomber doing some wonderful music, and including the children in these. They'd get an instrument each, and they'd be part of what he was doing, and community, local people would flock to the area. It was beautiful, and obviously visitors. And then it was time to step up. It was doing well enough, and I can remember calling in at Fiona's one time to have a chat, and she was at a computer, and she's like, I can't not now. I've got till 5 o'clock tonight to get a funding application in. And so I left, as you do, and I found out later on that was one of the funding applications that allowed the business to grow into the building that it is now in and become the success that it now is.
Everyone in my family's worked at Bright Brewery. As an employee, I started here in 2013. My partner Rudy has worked here, he says, a lot longer than me. He's been here since the conception of Bright Brewery, he will say, and is not sure why he's not getting long service leave. However, I do point out to him he's not an employee. My daughter Lily came working at Bright Brewery in 2015, then followed Joel, her fiancé, who's in logistics, and his twin sister. And not only that, my son, who had visited us for a weekend for Lily's birthday, we were absolutely swamped at Bright Brewery. And as a pizza chef in Melbourne, they said, like, can you help us? Can you work for us for the day? So who's employed for one day to get us through the day? But a huge influence on our family, a big family business, Bright Brewery, and everybody is a family at Bright Brewery. We're one big family.
A small story that I think is a really good reflection of the personality and the people we've recruited, which really fits in with our values. So we need some new bunting for events and for the event bar. And then one day, Jen turned up with a load of really good handmade bunting she'd made from the old uniforms we'd had in the storeroom, which I thought was just a perfect example of what we stand for. So we'd taken something that was waste and we'd recycled that into something that we really needed. And it's beautiful bunting. And it just was a real good reflection of the kind of people and their attitude towards our values.
I can remember how a long time ago now, the three girls were in charge of laundering the tea towels that were used in the brewery. And I don't think it went for very many months, but it was at one stage, it was their job.
And they got 20 cents a tea towel for laundering and folding. They didn't have to iron the tea towels, but there was a good flow of tea towels. And they've been involved, and from when it was just a shed, there was seating outside and music going on. They delighted in coming and dancing to the music, and that was all rather wonderful.
One of my earliest memories of the brewery would be going down to the brewery when Dad's working, just like in the middle of the day after kindergarten in Lyndhurst, just spinning around on his swivelly chair at his desk and eating a packet of chips from behind the bar.
I think it was probably, we used to get some pocket money, just like $2 each, whenever we would wash all of the tea towels and fold them for the brewery when they didn't have a dishwasher or anything or washing machine.
So the brewery often has a bush dance, unfortunately not during COVID times, but I remember being at the very first bush dance with my son Jimmy, who was probably 3 at the time. And there was this great band and they were playing great music and nobody was dancing except for my 3-year-old son. So when I think of the brewery, I always imagine little Jimmy, 3 years old, dancing around to the sound of the guitar and the drum and the violin and having a great time.
Whenever we're at the brewery, I have a sweet memory. There's a Polonia tree growing out on the deck.
It's the one in the corner. The deck's been built around it, basically.
Yeah. And down at Red Hill, we had this huge Polonia tree, and branches would get so heavy they'd fall off, and then they'd take root in the soil. And one day, as they were leaving, Fiona picked up a branch and said, "Oh, this will grow." And I thought, God, you don't want to grow that. It's like a monster. It'll keep growing. Anyway, she had amazing green thumbs, that girl, and she brought it home, and the next time we were in Bright, there it was, planted on the brewery in the corner, away from the little shed they had, and it's continued to grow, and it's still there. So every time I see that, I have fond memories of that little interlude with Fiona.
Here's an example of some of the positive and passion behind Fiona. So her last winter on Earth, she said to me, "You know what? We haven't even skied together. We've mountain biked together. We haven't even skied together. Come on." So we organised a day. We'd go skiing, and I was going to take her up. And she rang me that morning and she said, have you got some ski pants I can borrow? Because all of mine are far too big. So anyway, turned up, we popped her in the ski pants, put her in the car. We had to stop on the way up. She's pretty sick. Anyway, I took her into the place I knew where I could keep her warm, and I went across the road and scrounged a ticket for her. And then we got on the snow, we did 2 laps, and then I needed to find a place for her to lie down and keep warm again, and we did that and then back down the hill. But just... it was just beautiful being out there with a girl who loved being out there and giving her that opportunity.